Good evening. I'm Spencer Williams, Director of Planning and Topography for Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
I'm Britt Bird, Senior Planner for Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
This Uniform Land Use Review Procedure public hearing is being conducted from the Brooklyn Borough Hall courtroom on Thursday, September 25th, 2025. Please note that this hearing is being streamed via WebEx and recorded to comply with the Open Meetings Law. The video will later be posted on the Brooklyn Borough President's YouTube channel. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. Following each applicant's presentation and any questions from the chair, members of the public who are in attendance tonight will be invited to testify on the applications. As a note, all comments are limited to 2 minutes. While this meeting is being live streamed, we do not accept virtual testimony. Members of the public may also submit comments to testimony@brooklynbp.nyc.gov for the Borough President's consideration through Friday, September 26, 2025. In this case, please call the second item.
Calendar item number 2, Eagle Street D-mapping. The applicant, BOP Greenpoint D LLC, seeks the elimination of a portion of Eagle Street in Greenpoint, Community District 1, Brooklyn. Please state your name and present this application.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having us. My name is Nick Williams. I'm a land use associate with Fried, Frank, Harris, Shriver, and Jacobson LLP. We're land use counsel to the applicant here, which is for a demapping of a paper street on the Greenpoint waterfront in Brooklyn. It's a little bit of an unusual city map amendment application in that it is private property that's historically been mapped as a street. The demapping is not creating any additional floor area. It's not allowing for any new development. And it's really being pursued to address a utility condition and a request by DEP to clean up title with respect to utilities on the site. Let's see, there we go. This slide here shows the project area outlined in red. To the north, the site in yellow is the applicant's property. It's a development known as Eagle and West, a mixed-use project on the Greenpoint waterfront. Further to the north is Newtown Barge Park. The project area outlined in red, it's an extension of Eagle Street. It's private property. It's mapped out to the somewhere between the pier head and the bulkhead line in the water. It is currently in ownership by several different private parties, as well as 2 portions of the Esplanade, which are owned by the city, that have been conveyed in connection with waterfront public access approvals. This slide shows the waterfront access plan for Greenpoint and Williamsburg. You can see here the project area outlined in red. It was mapped as the location of an upland connection. And in fact, the chair of the City Planning Commission has approved site plans within this area for upland connections connecting to an esplanade on the waterfront, the northern portion of which was constructed in connection with the Eagle and West project. This is just to show the context here, and the proposal here is consistent with the waterfront access plan. This is the applicant's project. Eagle and West consists of 3 buildings. Total of 745 rental units, of which 224 are affordable under the voluntary inclusionary housing program for this portion of Brooklyn. The project included almost 50,000 square feet of public open space wrapping the project. You can see here on the esplanade along the water, and along the north of the buildings connecting out to West Street, and then along the southern portion adjacent to a driveway, a sidewalk leading to the public esplanade. Project was completed in 2022, and portions of the waterfront were conveyed to the city as required under the city planning approvals. However, the entire public open space is maintained by a property owners association comprising this property and a building across the street. This slide shows the current city map. On the left-hand side is the map. On the right-hand side is an overlay of the aerial photograph showing the location. You can see here, it's an extension of Eagle Street that was mapped without a terminus out into the water. Our best research suggests that this was mapped in the 1830s prior to the incorporation of this area into the city of New York. Within this location, in connection with the development, the applicant constructed private water and sewer utility infrastructure that serves the project. And this demapping application is being pursued at the request of DEP. So again, proposed map amendment to remove this portion of Eagle Street to create a new street line on the western side of West Street at this location. There are no changes to the existing built or improved conditions within the project area. The reason that DEP asked us to pursue this demapping is that under the rules of the City of New York related to utility infrastructure, when you have private property that's mapped as a street, even though it's in private ownership, there is a residual potential obligation to DEP to step in and maintain if there is an issue. For that reason, the applicant, in connection with site connection approval, entered into a declaration that's recorded against the site, which confirms the applicant's obligation to maintain the infrastructure, includes a financial security backstopping that obligation, and requires us to seek the demapping, which will have the effect of removing any potential obligation to DEP in the future. And that is the extent of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions there might be.
Thank you. That was very helpful to get the context on that particular paper street and the various obligations. Can you speak to any discussion or concerns that were raised during community board review?
There were no concerns raised at Brooklyn Community Board 1. There were clarifying questions that were asked about the scope of what's being approved, but no concerns expressed. And I believe they issued a recommendation to approve without conditions.
Thank you. The panel is now excused.
Thank you.
We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public who are in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes.
We have no one signed up to testify on this item. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak that hasn't signed up yet?
Hearing no further comment, this item is now closed. Thank you to the applicant team. Please call the first item.
Calendar item number 1, Prospect Farm acquisition, a site acquisition by NYC Department of Parks and Recreation of a privately owned parcel on block 5267, lot 19, to facilitate continued use as part of Prospect Farm Community Garden in Windsor Terrace, Community District 7, Brooklyn. Please state your name and present this application.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jess Walkler. I'm a planner for the Parks Department. I'm also joined by Alex with DCAS. Sorry, I don't know how to say your last name, Alex. Truskowski. Okay, so if I could go to the next slide.
You have a clicker on the top of the podium
great.
there, and if you could point it at the computer,
Okay.
it should be
Right here. Got it. Okay. So the proposed action I would like to present today is the Parks Department proposes using city funds to acquire Brooklyn Block 5267 Lot 19, which going forward I will call the project site. And the purpose of this proposed action is to preserve the parcel's use as a community garden. So this slide right here shows a zoomed out aerial view of the neighborhood that the project site is located in, Windsor Terrace. You can see to the right of the screen or to the east is Prospect Park. Just to the west of the project site, which is outlined in red there, you can see the Prospect Expressway. And then the site itself is located on Prospect Avenue with Seeley Street and the Seeley Street Bridge just to the north. Here are a couple of photos of the site. In this first one, you are standing in the garden looking north at the Seeley Street Bridge. And then in the second photo, you are across the street from the garden looking west at the frontage of the garden. Zoning. So this yellow C indicates that the project site is located in a primarily residential zoning district with a couple of parks in green that you can see along Prospect Expressway. The area immediately surrounding the project site is zoned R5B, which limits floor area ratios to 1.5 and 2. And allows for detached, semi-detached, and attached buildings. But surrounding the site, it's primarily attached buildings with a height of around 3 stories. To the east, there's also slightly higher zoning on Prospect Park Southwest at R6A. And then in blue, you can also see commercial district overlays where small businesses can locate. And the actual land use of the area we can see is primarily residential. Again, the light yellow and darker yellow shows 1 and 2 family buildings and multifamily walk-up buildings. So that's the primary character of the neighborhood, but there is also a couple multifamily elevator buildings. And then in the red and light red, you can see where the commercial district overlay allowed for some businesses to locate. And then there are a couple of peculiarities with the project site, so I just wanted to focus in on those. In red, you can see the acquisition parcel that the Parks Department is proposing acquisition of, and that's lot 19, which is privately owned. But in the black dotted line, you'll notice is the full extent of the gardening operations. And I don't believe I said it's Prospect Farm that we're talking about here is the name of the garden. So that extends beyond the site that the Parks Department is proposing acquisition of and into 2 other areas. And the first is to the north, that's under DOT jurisdiction, that's lot 118. And that lot is directly in between the site we're proposing acquiring and the Sealy Street Bridge. And then in that yellow color, everything that's yellow is right-of-way, mapped street. So part of the garden is also extends into the mapped street, which is also under DOT jurisdiction. And then to get into a little bit of the history of Prospect Farm. So the current owners, Tom and Gotti and Emma Matos Ramos, first acquired the site in 1996. At this time, the property was pretty much a dumping ground for the neighborhood. This property and the area surrounding, as you can see in the photo that is from 1980 on the right there. And once Tom and Emma owned this property, they decided to clean it up, and this took actually a couple decades along with help from neighborhood volunteers. And finally in 2010, the site was able to be established as Prospect Farm, a community garden. Today, the garden is very popular in the Windsor Terrace community and a big part of the community with approximately 40 members and no wait list, unlike some other gardens that have individual garden plots. Everyone is able to join whenever they would like because all of the garden plots here are communally run and gardened. In addition, there are 2 native wildflower planting areas. The produce that is grown at the garden, the vegetables, the berries, and the herbs are all distributed amongst the garden members. In addition, there's a twice-a-week food scrap drop-off that's open to anyone, and that's turned into compost by the gardeners, which is then put back into the garden and also given away to the public for free. And the garden also hosts 3 or more public events a year. Which, as you can see in the photos, are very popular. And to bring it back to the garden's relationship with the City of New York and Green Thumb, right now it's currently registered with New York City Parks Green Thumb. And Green Thumb is a New York City Parks program that supports volunteer-run community gardens across the 5 boroughs. They have relationships with over 500 gardens in the city. And what that registered status means is that the Green Thumb provides basic gardening materials to Prospect Farm. This would be things like wood chips, soil, mulch, and they also provide technical assistance. And in return, the garden must stay open for 20 or more hours a week to the public during the growing season, along with other requirements such as signage requirements that are intended to support public access to the garden. But what would change if this property were to become city-owned? How would the relationship with Green Thumb change? It would make the garden able to enter into a license agreement with Green Thumb, which is only available to gardens on city-owned properties. The garden would retain its registered status, but this would make it eligible for a lot of benefits, including receiving labor, capital improvements from Green Thumb, which they're not currently able to receive. So this could include things like pergolas, shade structures, sheds, internal water access, and other property management items as funds are available for these. And then it would continue to be subject to those original requirements that are intended to support public access. So to wrap it all up, what are the benefits of this proposed action? First of all, the space is protected for generations to come. So there is a city law that mandates that gardens on city-owned property that are in good standing with Green Thumb must continue to be used and preserved as gardens. Currently, as a privately owned Green Thumb garden, this protection does not apply to the garden. And then secondly, those resources that Green Thumb would be able to provide in terms of capital improvements, labor, et cetera, that we talked about on the previous slide. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Before we get to questions, Alex, I see that you had checked wanting to speak. Did you want to deliver or speak during the presentation on behalf of the team? Got it. Great. Just clarify, if you want to speak, now is the time rather than testimony. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, then moving on to questions. Can you speak to any discussion or concerns raised during community board review?
Yes. So the majority of the testimony that we heard during community board review was very positive, touching on the impact of Prospect Farm on gardeners' lives. It was mostly gardeners themselves speaking and, talking about the access to fresh food and community that the garden provides. But there was also a lot of discussion about the upcoming separate but related DOT project, which is the rehabilitation of Sealy Street Bridge, which I discussed is just north of the garden. And there was in particular, I'll go back to the map, concern and desire to protect the two DOT areas of the garden, protect those and preserve those for garden use. Overall, it seemed, I think the gardeners were unanimous or nearly unanimous in their support for the city's acquisition, but there was a lot of concern over that Sealy Street Bridge project. And the chair of the board and the chair of the land use subcommittee helped to channel those concerns into two conditions that were passed. The community board recommended the project with two conditions. The first being a request that the area in yellow, the right-of-way, the portion of the right-of-way that the garden is on, be transferred to the Parks Department so that it can continue to be used as a garden. And then a second condition that's contingent on the first, if the portion of the right-of-way can't be transferred to parks, then the Parks Department and DOT should enter into a memorandum of understanding or MOU that establishes parks management of that yellow area and allows for parks and input into future changes to the MOU.
Great, thank you. So for the proposed acquisition of the yellow portion you're mentioning, or how would this proposed acquisition in this application impact that portion within the right-of-way? Would transferring that portion within the right-of-way that you just mentioned, would that require a follow-up action?
Yeah, so this proposed action would not affect the yellow area at all, the right-of-way, how it is used or its ownership. It would be required for there to be a follow-up ULURP action if we wanted to transfer the right-of-way to the Parks Department. The Parks Department isn't able to gain jurisdiction of areas that are mapped city street. So we require demapping, a demapping action. And we can't, while an action is in the middle of public review, add in an additional action. So that would need to be initiated outside of this process for the acquisition action. But of course, everything is subject to what DOT is willing to do since they do currently have jurisdiction. So subject to further conversations with DOT.
Got it. Thank you. Has Parks or DCAS assessed the neighboring vacant lot as an acquisition opportunity, either to expand the gardening programming or to help facilitate the future pedestrian ramp to the Sealy Street Bridge?
Are you, just a clarifying question, are you referring to the lot to the west of the?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So the Parks Department has not really assessed this parcel to the west. It is currently privately owned. It is a driveway and a yard that serves the house. That's just one property further to the west. You can see on this map. So both of those properties are owned by the same person. The reason the Parks Department initiated the acquisition of Lot 19, the project site, is because we were approached by Mr. Angotti and he offered to sell the property to the city. We didn't receive such an offer from the owner of this parcel to the west. I do want to note that it is separated from the garden parcel by a retaining wall, and it's at a much higher elevation. So I think there is limited ability to connect the two. As to the question about if there's been any consideration of this parcel for ramp usage, I can't speak to what DOT's design is or what they're considering. But over the years of our collaboration on this land use action, DOT hasn't described any land use actions associated with their project. But our understanding is that the bridge is still in preliminary design, and there will be an opportunity to ask DOT about this and other aspects of the bridge design during their community engagement, which they are anticipating kicking off in the first half of 2026.
Great, thank you. And then how is this acquisition aligned with the Vital Parks Initiative?
Yeah, so the Vital Parks Initiative, for those in the audience who haven't heard of this, it's a program launched in 2024 with the purpose of delivering new park resources where they're most needed in the city. Through this program, $3.2 billion was dedicated to improving New York City parks. This project also involved the creation of a mapping tool, which is publicly available on our website, allows you to see all of the parks in New York City, their features, their amenities, and where in New York City is within a 10-minute walk of a park and which neighborhoods are not. So I really recommend checking out this feature on our website, the Vital Parks Map. And to answer your question, this acquisition is very much in line with the principles of the Vital Parks Initiative, which is to invest in our city's living infrastructure with the goal of equitably strengthening our city's health, environment, and communities. The project specifically falls under the growing green space sub-goal of the initiative. While the green space is technically already existing, we believe that preserving this green space does count as a growing green space, you know.
Wonderful. This panel is now excused. We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public who are in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes.
Great. So we have Tom Angotti.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this project, which is very dear to my heart. It started about 15 years ago as an effort to do something with this land that Emma and I acquired when we bought the house about 30 years ago. I want to say something about how what it was beforehand. We live in one of the many units built by the New York City Housing Partnership in Windsor Terrace on land that was previously owned by the Pilgrim Laundry. And when we moved in, we bought it from the original owners who flipped it and made a nice little bundle from it. And it came along with this vacant lot right next door. I'm a retired professor of urbanism and have taught about sustainable land use. And I said, well, this could be an opportunity to create a community project, because my early attempts to clean the lot and to do something with it were very feeble. And I said, I can't do this by myself. Put out a call. The next day, 100 people came, and it started, and the whole thing started. One other important part, and these three principles that I established in the beginning have held and seem to work. Build community, make healthy food, and a clean soil. There's an important lesson about the transformation of the soil, because we followed the textbook and did everything possible to improve the soil by composting, bringing in some additional soil. But it turns out this was a dumping ground, a toxic dumping ground. And after years of constantly testing the soil, we came to the hard conclusion that it was going to be impossible to improve the existing soil through gradual improvement using newly composted soil. So we went to raised beds, and they work, and they are worked collectively. And I just want to say one thing that's really important about these last 15 years of experience. One of the main principles we established at the beginning was to build community. And that's probably the greatest contribution. I'm proud of it because it's open. We have people of all generations. It's ethnically diverse. It's constantly changing. So there's not a blueprint, because there's a constant conversation going on among the gardeners. So that's why I think this is something valuable. I want to say one last thing, though, that is very concerning, and the gardeners are very concerned about, and that is DOT's role going forward. When I first moved to the neighborhood, there was a huge conflict with the DOT over renovating the bridge. It was in the capital program, and they said it had to be renovated because it was falling apart. 30 years later, it's still there. And it's been patched up. And one of the big concerns has always been the heavy traffic over the bridge that could create a safety problem. But only last year, DOT, after tremendous discussion with the residents of Sealy Street, decided to shift, make Sealy Street one way instead of two way. Everybody sees the result, which is a drastic decrease in traffic. So there needs to be a full-fledged discussion with DOT. Does this bridge really need to be rebuilt? Can its volume of traffic be reduced even more? And or can we explore the possibility of what's the word? Turning it into two one-way stubs, and closing the bridge. These are really good questions. In my earlier meetings with Parks invited an architect from DOT, and she was kind enough to share some of the ideas about a bridge renovation. Even though it's not in the capital budget, it's who knows when. It could be 5-10 years from now, or even more. So I was very concerned about the sketch that I was shown, because in order to comply with handicap requirements, the solution that was being suggested was bringing a ramp down from the bridge all across the front of the community garden, parallel to Prospect Avenue. This would destroy one of the great assets, which is the green wall that introduces Prospect Farm, and is it's one of its main values in the neighborhood. I strongly suggest to DOT that they meet with the community gardeners. That has not happened. It needs to happen. It needs to happen not just with the community gardeners, but with all the residents. There's another pending element, and I'll just leave this on the table. Prospect Avenue has a 100-foot right-of-way. That right-of-way partially extends into Prospect Farm, but it also extends into the houses that line Prospect Avenue, including our own. It eats up, a good piece of our front yard. And it's clear that there's no future plan to widen Prospect Avenue. So one of the things that I hope the Borough President's office can consider is taking a look at the mapping of the street. It makes no sense to keep the 100-foot wide right-of-way. I understand that this was a big idea that that was made null when Prospect Expressway was built as a main artery for relieving the traffic going south. So I just leave with that concern that there needs to be an extensive dialogue with DOT going forward. And I hope the transfer of the property will occur very soon, and the traffic problems may take a little bit longer. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
We have no other people signed up to testify on this item. Is there anyone else who would like to speak who is not yet signed up?
Hearing no further comment, this item is now closed. Please call the third item.
Calendar item number 3, Coney Island Business Improvement District formation. An application by New York City Small Business Services for the proposed establishment of Coney Island Business Improvement District along Surf Avenue, generally bound by West 5th Street to West 23rd Street, Mermaid Avenue, generally bound by Stowell Avenue to West 33rd Street, Riegelman Boardwalk, generally bound from West 15th Street to West 22nd Street, located in the Coney Island neighborhood of Brooklyn within Community Board 13. Please state your name and present this application.
Yes. Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is George Dove. My wife and yes. Thank you. Yeah. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is George Dove. My wife and I have property owners and business owners of Coney Island for the last 30 years. And I am here today as a member of the steering committee to present the Coney Island Business Improvement District. Oh, there we go. The Coney Island bid formation effort is driven by a steering committee of longtime local property owners, business owners, and residents and community members. The people who created this proposal care about the neighborhood and have been working to make Coney Island a better place for decades. Why a bid in Coney Island? Cleaner, safer streets, improved quality of life, one-on-one business support and technical assistance. With new residents coming into the neighborhood, we need to keep spending local. We need to preserve the history and culture of the neighborhood. Plan for a more vibrant, resilient Coney Island. Community Board 13 included forming a bid in Coney Island among its priorities in the fiscal year 2025. This is a timeline dating back to when conversations about the bid formation first began back in 2016. This is the timeline of this iteration of the bid formation effort. We began at the end of 2022 and launched outreach in 2024. The Alliance has done 2 needs assessments that were funded by New York City Department of Small Businesses. The first was completed in 2017, the second was completed in 2023, and was targeted at business and property owners. The outcome of both needs assessments were very similar and spoke to many issues that could be resolved by a bid. The steering committee has formulated a proposal for the Coney Island Business Improvement District that has the resources and capacity to address many of the issues identified by the needs assessment. This proposal is the outcome of over a year of stakeholder engagements and thoughtful and deliberation, and represents a shared vision of a cleaner, safer, and more vibrant neighborhood. The bid geography is focused on 2 main commercial areas in Coney Island, Mermaid Avenue and the amusement district. The bid is not just about the amusement district and driving tourism. It is really important for us to include Mermaid Avenue, because Mermaid Avenue is the commercial corridor that services the people who live in Coney Island. The services outlined in the bid proposals respond directly to what we heard in the needs assessment and our personal experience as business owners. Perhaps the most important thing that the bid will provide is consistent sanitation service on Mermaid Avenue and the amusement district. The bid will also provide landscaping and streetscape services, including tree pit maintenance and planting trees and flowers. Public safety is obviously a major concern. We have funding allocated in the budget for public safety and specifically for Mermaid Avenue. The bid will fund marketing and promotions to increase tourism and Coney Island brand recognition. The bid will provide funding for free year-round public programs and events, such as Friday night fireworks, flicks on the beach, sand sculpting, Halloween parade, Thanksgiving turkey giveaway, and more. The bid will fund business support and advocacy, including commercial vacancy reduction initiatives, a new business attraction, door-to-door outreach, and technical assistance and advocacy. A dedicated staff will respond directly to the community, manage the organization and programs, and advocate for local needs with elected officials and city agencies. This is an outline of how we reach the maximum assessment. We budgeted for a maximum assessment that would sustain the organization for 7 to 10 years, keeping in mind inflation and minimum wage increases. We will start billing at $1 million and keep an assessment as low as possible for as long as possible by supplementing assessment dollars with additional grants and sponsorships. Assessment formula. We develop an assessment formula to reflect our goal that every property will contribute fairly and accommodating to scale and according to scale. So from the beginning, 2 property types stood out as distinct. Class A, which is the amusement area, and Class B, which is Mermaid Avenue. We intentionally reduced the base fee for Class B to keep assessments manageable for Mermaid Avenue properties. Class C is residential properties, and they pay a token $1. At this point, I would like to pass over to my colleague, Steve, to continue our presentation. Steve.
Thank you. Here we go. Thanks, George. What's that? Good evening. My name is Steve Cohen, and I am the Vice President of the Brooklyn Cyclones, and I am also the Chair of the Alliance. I'm also represent, I guess, a business that is most impacted by a potential bid, and I'm here to speak positively about it. On slide 11, this is a list of the key milestones that we achieved since we launched the bid formation ballot. I won't go through it all, but as you can see here, it's well over a year of outreach that we undertook. On next slide. These are some examples of materials we use to make the information about the bid as accessible as possible. We have printed materials that we distributed, including informational pamphlets targeted at Mermaid Avenue and the amusement district. It was important for us to make sure that all of the businesses that were in our mapping zone would hear from us directly. We translated the information into multiple languages, including Spanish, Arabic, Hebrew, and Mandarin. I did all that. We worked with a volunteer who is fluent in Mandarin and Cantonese, who made phone calls and paid visits to Chinese property owners. Over the course of nearly a decade, the Alliance did a lot of demonstration projects to showcase the value of the bid to local merchants and property owners. In addition to 2 presentations required by SBS, we also presented to Community Board 13 to a full board meeting in May. We spoke about the bid formation to retail brokers, commercial tenants, and property owners at our annual brokers breakfast in 2023 and 2024. We also hosted dedicated meetings at the Coney Island Library targeted at Mermaid Avenue businesses. We had a much larger crowd at the free breakfast at Gargiulo's than at the public library. We hired a dedicated staff. We hired a dedicated staff person from April to December of 24 to do weekly door-to-door outreach to Mermaid Avenue businesses. There's some in-action photos for you. Since we launched outreach in March of 24, we have had over 1,000 touch points with property owners and commercial tenants. This includes 3 separate ballot mailings to every commercial property owner and 2 mailings to every residential property owner, commercial tenant, and resident. The key here, we have support from 64% of total assessed value of the district and no organized opposition. The pure scale, I guess I could lower that too. The pure scale of public and private investment in Coney Island over the last decade is immense. We have newly mapped streets, several new residential buildings with several more to come. Coney Island added and or will add approximately 3,400 new apartments to its neighborhood, but there is no sustainable funding vehicle without a bid. Without a bid, all these new residents will likely leave the neighborhood to shop and dine. And I can attest to you, there's very limited lunch options. As I just mentioned, there's more investment ahead for Coney Island, and a bid is in direct alignment with mayoral initiatives and priorities for the area as a whole. In closing, the bid proposal is the outcome of nearly a decade of volunteer efforts and community engagement. We have a lot of strong support and no organized opposition. Bid formation has the strong support of our local council members and Community Board 13. It is time to create a bid in Coney Island, and we are here to formally ask that the Borough President's Office vote in support of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We have a couple of questions for you and the team. Were any other geographies considered for the bid boundaries?
Sure. The answer to that is at one point, yes, we did consider it, but Coney Island is a pretty large island, and in order to keep it as compact and service people the best we can, what you see is what we eventually came up with.
How would the bid propose to interact with nearby public spaces such as the MTA station at Stillwell Avenue and Riggleman Boardwalk?
If you want.
I'm Danny Murphy. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance of Coney Island, and I'm working with the steering committee. So the MTA station, while it is obviously a public facility and won't be paying an assessment, is in the middle of our geography. We'll be sweeping the sidewalk, if nothing else, in front of the subway station. The businesses we already in there, though, again, they wouldn't be paying an assessment. We already have relationships with them when they need help and have public safety issues. So that would continue as well.
And do you anticipate anything sort of different with sort of, I know there's sort of multiple types of street vendors and different types of business activity on the street that is sort of not happening within the sort of brick and mortar part of the district. Do you have any sense of sort of how your efforts as a bid will encourage more activity on the street in addition to maybe supporting some of those street vendors?
Ooh. Well, I mean, some of the street vendors right now are also selling booze to underage people. They're all selling meat out of basically containers without gloves on. I know I would get fined for that at the ballpark. And eventually what's going to happen is these flames and propane gas tanks, which are not legal, will end up burning down the boardwalk. So I think the answer is that we need to come to a happy meet halfway. We would like to see more vending opportunity on the boardwalk, especially when it comes to renting chairs and other beach amenities that you don't particularly get in Coney Island, unless it's done by somebody, you know, on the side there. So we would definitely want to see that happen, but in the proper way. The last thing we want is, you know, a boardwalk full of people going home with a bad stomach.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is you hope that there are more opportunities to enhance the businesses that are there and the district sort of character, and that there should be opportunities for that with more investment.
Yeah, I mean, and absolutely. And right now it's dangerous. There's too many. Boardwalk, right. And
Yes.
boardwalk to surf. Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to further answer that.
Yes, please.
When you talk about activating the street,
Yes.
that's exactly what a bid would do. In of course, all the correct ways. We have to license, we have to go through procedures with the city, we have to get permission. As far as vending goes, we have licensed vending and unlicensed vending,
yes.
right? So we do have licensed vendors on Stillwell, disabled veterans such as that. But we are very concerned with the health of our visitors. When there are unlicensed vendors who are selling, as Steve said, meat products, we can't vouch for that.
Right.
The boardwalk itself is a parks property and not a bid property or public property, but we would and do right now and would continue to, a bid would continue to do is to work with parks to ensure that that is orderly and safe for everybody as well.
Wonderful. Yes. How will the bid balance the needs and priorities between Surf and Mermaid Avenues? Did the steering committee consider pursuing two different bids for these two corridors?
In reality, no, we never really considered that because the Coney Island bid is the unity of the Coney Island bid with Mermaid and Surf is about cohesion and it's about cost. It's just easier administratively to run a bid for two districts, and it is one neighborhood. And the folks who are on Mermaid Avenue shopping do come to Surf Avenue as well, and vice versa. The music businesses, some of which are opened, all year long, and some of which are open seasonally, hire extensively from the neighborhood of Coney Island. So there is a cohesion issue that makes us want to have one Coney Island bid.
Wonderful. Did you have any more questions? Okay. I just wanted to also just commend your outreach. There's been a lot of things that have been happening in the neighborhood over the last year. And so the ability to really engage folks when there's a lot of competing attention in your neighborhood, I just want to commend you and the team and SBS for the work to really go door to door and engage people and really hear what the needs are and to stay consistent with that. Certainly there's a big difference between what was going on in 2017 before COVID and what's happening now. So just wish for the continued success of the business district. And with that, the panel is excused.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you. We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public who are in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes.
There is no one signed up to comment on this item. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak who hasn't signed up?
Hearing no further comment, this item is now closed. That concludes our agenda for this evening. This ULURP public hearing is now ended. The Borough President will review these applications and submit his recommendations to the City Planning Commission, which will hold its hearing on these items at a later date. As a reminder, members of the public may submit comments to testimony at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for the Borough President's consideration till Friday, September 26, 2025. This meeting is now adjourned.